Good morning, Boker Tov. We're in Parashat Balak, a very interesting parasha. And usually, when we see the curses or the attempt to curse of Bilam, we try to look at the various extraordinary things in the parasha. Aton, the talks, the situation of going to curse at all. What did he think? Why was he afraid of Am Israel? Etc. Because Lichora is a basic question that Moab shouldn't be worried of Am Israel because they see at the end of Parashat Chukat explicitly that Am Israel tries to pass over and not to confront and make a war with Moab, or Midian. So what was he afraid of? One answer to this, as we know from the discussion that we saw last week's Haftorah, and we discussed it last week Shiur, that Yiftach Agiladi and the king of Bnei Ammon, they say, okay, what do you want from me? I've never taken anything from you. And then Melech Bnei Ammon tells him, you're not right, because you have already taken things from me. You have taken it from Sichon. And as we know, the trick that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made was that Am Israel didn't directly took the Nachalot of Ammon and Moab, but Sichon Melech Moab made a war with them. He conquered them and won and took over the reigning in these areas, and then Am Yisrael came and made a war with Sichon, and then we didn't make any war with Ammon and Moab and Midian, but just we've taken it from Sichon. So that's the base, the matrix on which the parsha is made. Apparently, Melech Midian is very worried. Melech Moab is very worried of the situation because Am Yisrael won and succeeded in winning over Sichon, and then they have taken the Nachalot, and now they might make a war with me. Okay, but that's his fear. I'm not talking about this. I'm not talking about the Aton stock. I'm not talking about Chet Bal Beor. I want to make a macro looking of the parasha, because looking at the parasha, you see that Bilam tries several times. He comes to Balak. Balak organizes things, organizes tabernacles, misbachot, and says, do this, so it will be fine. And then he fails, and at the end of the parasha, he is expelled. It's very funny at the end of the parasha, because you see that Balak tells him, Ve'ata brach lecha el mekomcha. Go away, run from me. And it's funny because all over the parasha you see that Bilam tells everything what to do. He is a big magician that everybody comes to him, and he has the vein, and you have to organize it for me. And Balak, the king, is just like his poodle, like his servant that does everything in order to to ease him, to make it easy for him to curse. And then at the end of the parasha, Ke'ilu, Balak Pitom suddenly becomes the governor, and he tells him, Brach lecha el mekomecha, I've taken you his money, he has given the money, and he thinks that Bala Me'ah or Bala De'ah, now I'll tell you what to do, you'll go away because you have failed in your options, in your choices to not to curse Am Israel. But we see that several times, 4 times, Bilam tries to curse Am Israel, and just in the 4th he succeeds. And usually we don't look at the 4 times and see what he said, because we think that he tried to say something in one occasion, Then in the second event, he made a different background, and it was a different atmosphere, and he tried to curse as well, and he failed as well. And then he comes to the third place. He says, "Oh, now it will be my place. Now I'll curse." And even though he fails, and then the fourth time. But we must understand that there must be a linkage between all the four cases, and there must be a string that takes them all in one chain, into one chain, in order to see maybe a development, maybe a increasing or decreasing between one neum, one speech, one prophecy, and another. So basically, I would like to say that the situation of 3 and 4 is very common in the Tanakh. That we have in Balak 3 times that he tries to curse, he fails, and then in the fourth, he without preparation, he says something, and he has his fourth speech. We have this several times in the Tanakh. We have many times 3 and 4. The most famous one is on Amos, in the Haftarah of Parshat Vayeshev, that Amos says, כה אמר השם על 3 פשעי ישראל ועל 4 לא אשיבנו. כה אמר השם על 3 פשעי מואב ועל 4 לא אשיבנו. כה אמר השם על 3 פשעי אדום או פלישתים ועל 4 לא אשיבנו. So we have there is a pattern of 3 times that HaKadosh Baruch Hu might forgive you, but if you do the 4th time, then you cannot regret. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees it as a constant thing, and that's it. And we know from the Rambam in the Hilchot Shuvah that in 3 times that HaKadosh Baruch Hu ma'avir rishon, he just counts the 3rd option. The 2 first, he relates to it as a mistake, as something that we don't have to look at it. But in the Tanakh, not in the Rambam, we see many times 4 times. I'll give you some examples. You know that with Gideon, after Gideon, the Shofet, the judge from Shoftim Perek Vav, so when he makes a war over Midian, and then Am Yisrael comes to him and tells him, I want you to be the king. And he says, no, Ani emshal bachem, Hashem emshal bachem. We mentioned it last time as well. And then there is Avimelech, his son, who kills all his brother, except one, Yotam, and tries to overcome the kingdom, Ligbor, to take the kingdom for himself, to be the king. And he is a friend of Baalei Shem, and therefore we have all the discussion with it. And we have the famous Mashal Yotam. Yotam, the child, comes and gives a very nice mashal. And he tells in his mashal that all the trees went to coronate a king, and they looked for the king, and they asked the Zayit, the olive tree, would you be the king? So the olive says, no, I have a lot of oil. I don't want to waste my fruitful consumption that I give to the public on just being a king. And then they go to the Te'ena, and they go to the Geffen, and the same thing. The Te'ena says, should I leave my sweetness and be just a king? And that's in the Geffen, should I leave my wine that I give to the public, to the people, and just be a king? So it's a very interesting mashal. But you see the pattern. Why doesn't Yotam use more trees? Why doesn't he use less trees? Why doesn't he use one time that I asked the trees, second time, and that's it? Why does he say that? After the asking 3, the Te'ena, the Geffen, and the Tamar, and the Zayit, then we'll go to the 4th, which is the thorn, the thistle. And then why doesn't he ask the Tamar? I've mentioned Tamar, so why not the date? What? Because you have the pattern of 3 times. After failing 3 times, you go to the fourth, and the fourth succeeds somehow. And that's what happens here. The trees go to coronate a tree. They look for 3 options, 3 candidates. They have the Geffen, the Te'ena, and the Zayit. After failing 3 times, they go to whoever comes, and whoever comes is the thistle, the thorn that burns everything at the end of the Mashal. When Shaul HaMelech fails in Shmuel Aleph Perek Tetvav with Amalek, the war with Amalek. So Shmuel is asked in Perek Tetzayin to go and coronate a king. And he goes to Ishai in Bethlehem. He's afraid that Shaul HaMelech would hear about it and kill him. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu soothes him and says, he won't do anything, you're Shliach Mitzvah. Okay. And then he goes to Ishai, according to the Tanakh in Perek Tetzayin. Ishai has 7 sons, but Shmuel tries just the 3. He tries Eliav, the first one, the firstborn, and he sees that he's very tall, very, very impressive. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and he says, Ach neged Hashem Meshicho, I'm sure that's it, the Mashiach. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him the famous pasuk, Lo Adam kmo HaKadosh Baruch Hu, unlike me, Adam yireh לעיניים והשם יראה ללבב. Okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu sees the heart, and Eliav was very vain. We see it later on in Perek Yud Zayin when David HaMelech comes to make a battle against Goliath. So he very rudely asks him, why have you come here? What are you looking for? I know you've just always looked for nonsense. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu negates the option of coronating Eliav. Then Shmuel goes to the second one. The second one is Avinadab. No, HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells him again, it's not good. Then he goes to the third option, Shama. Okay? Shima, according to Divrei Yamim. No. Why doesn't he go to the fourth option? Why doesn't he go to the 5th kid, to the 6th kid? David HaMelech is the 7th, maybe the 8th, depends on the Sefer Shmuel or Divrei Yamim. So why does he skip from the 3 to the 4 to the last one, David HaMelech? After 3, he asks Ishai explicitly, don't you have another one here? So he says, yes, he's a shepherd. So he says, bring him. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu immediately tells him that's the Mashiach. So we have again the pattern of 3 times and 4 times. And a doctorate was written on it that we find many, many times in the Tanakh, the pattern of 3 times. And again, as I said, in Amos, it's very explicit. HaKadosh Baruch Hu can forego Edom, Plishtim, Ammon, Moab, Aram, whatever, 3 times, but the 4th times, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't forego. And we have the same thing here with the Nevuot of Bilam. Because let's see the Parsha. At the beginning, we have a try to Vayishlach Malachim, 1 time, okay? And then he asks again and again. And at the end of the story, we have the story of the Aton. And just at the end of the Parsha, it's very interesting when you read the Parsha, you might think that immediately we have the curses of Bilam, but not. Look, we're now in Revi, okay? Half the parasha is done, and we haven't come to the start of the cursing, okay? Pay attention. Half of the parasha is wasted on John, the trials, the attempts to convince him, to ask him whether he comes, whether he doesn't come, and will HaKadosh Baruch Hu permit him, will HaKadosh Baruch Hu not permit him. At the end of the day, in Perek of Gimel, the Christians divided the Perek because they understood that from Perek of Bet is devoted just to the attempts, and Perek of Gimel is devoted to the 3 stages where he tries, and then he comes to the first Nisoyan. ויאמר בלעם אל בלק, בנה לי בזה 7 מזבחות, והכני בזה 7 פרים ו7 אלים. And Balak makes exactly what he has ordered him. ויעל בלק ובלעם פר ועיל במזבח. אוקיי. ויאמר בלעם לבלק, התייצב על עולתך. ואליך, אולי יקרא השם לקראתי, ודבר מה יראני והגדתי לך, וילך שפי. So we know that one of the differences that the Rambam points out between the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu and the other Nevi'im is that Moshe constantly could speak with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's why he wasn't with his wife Tzipora. That's the Ta'ana of Miriam and Aaron at the end of Parashat Be'alotcha, but Moshe couldn't be with a family, real ordinary life, because the Kadosh Baruch Hu could speak with him any moment. But other Nevi'im, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu spoke to them, the Rambam says that there are 4 differences between the Nevuah of Moshe Rabbeinu to them. It wasn't all the time. When they spoke to him, they shook. Okay, they couldn't hold themselves. They didn't speak kasher edeber ish el re'ehu, as the Torah says about Moshe Rabbeinu. No, they were different. But with Bilam, we see התפתחות. We see a development. We see here, the first time, he tells Balak, you be on olatecha, you be next to your korban. Ve'elecha, ulai, he is not sure. Maybe yikare Hashem likrati. He uses the shorish, the root of kuf reish hey, meaning maybe, mikre, ulai, perhaps. So he has 2 words of perhaps, ulai, maybe, and yikare, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come across me, במקרה, all of a sudden. ודבר מה יראני והגדתי לך. So at the beginning of his nevuah, we see that Bilam is not a prophet at all. He's not sure. He is not sure that he can give the schora to Balak. He has promised to curse, but maybe HaKadosh Baruch Hu would see, and maybe he would come across me. Vayelech shefi. What does it mean, shefi? So there are 2 explanations. One is that he went with Gava, that he went zakuf. But one explanation, based on Yonatan ben Uziel, that Vayelech shefi, is that he was going like shaking, doubtful, he wasn't sure. So we see that at the beginning of his prophecy, he's very, very unsure whether HaKadosh Baruch Hu would speak at all to him. And then HaKadosh Baruch Hu relates to him the same way. Vaikar Elohim el Bilam. Okay, HaKadosh Baruch Hu comes across, Vayomer elav, et shiv'a mizbechot arachti, va'al par va'el b'mizbeach. Okay, so Bilam tells him, okay, I've done what I have to do. I have opened my book of magics and saw that in order to curse, I have to prepare 7 tabernacles and par va'ayil. So I've done everything. All the matkon is done, but I don't see any result. Vayasem Hashem davar befi Bilam. So we see how mechanically the Torah uses. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't speak to him, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu puts and pays and feeds with a spoon. Bilam, Vayomer shuv el Balak v'cho tedaber. I'll tell you exactly what to say. Vayashov elav v'hineh nitzav al alato hu v'chol sarei Moav, vayisa meshalo vayomer. So we see that's a preparation for the first time. Bilam is not sure at all that he would speak. Let's see what he says. Because he doesn't say just few things here, few things there. There is a development between one speech and another. So he talks to the public. He speaks about his doubts. Kadosh Baruch Hu told me not to curse. How can I curse? How can I make my role as a cursor? כי מראש צורים הראינו, ומגבעות אשורנו, הן עם לבדד ישכון, ובגויים לא יתחשב. So without any meforish, just a shot of what he says. What does he say about Am Yisrael? Am Yisrael comes from Rosh Tzurim ומגבעות. Chazal talks about the Avot and the Imaot, but for us, he has a long history we have known that Am Israel went out of Egypt, at Kriyat Yam Suf, Amalek, etc. And Am levadad ishkon uvagoyim lo yitchashav. So this is a very strange nation, because he is secluded and he does whatever he wants. מי מנע עפר יעקב ומספר את רוב ישראל, תמות נפשי מות ישרים ותהיה אחריתי כמוהו. So Am Israel has speciality that he is secluded. His seclusion is unique just to Am Israel, and I would like to be like him. That's, in short, the first nevuah of Bilam. So we saw that he's very skeptical whether he would succeed in cursing, and in his nevuah he says a lot of Am Israel, okay, mi mana afar Yaakov. He stresses out that Am Israel doesn't have any number. Let's see after Chamishi, the second speech. Vayomer elav Balak, לכנה איתי, go please with me אל מקום אחר אשר תראינו משם. אפס קצהו תראה וכולו לא תראה, וכובנו לי משם. So he tries to look at the edge of Am Israel, not to see everything. Why does he think that looking at the edge of Am Israel will make a difference? That's another issue. We can say a lot of things like what we know today. If you look at Am Israel, you see a lot of edges. You see extremists from the right, extremists from the left, and you think that they're just mad people. The nation is mad because they do mad things. So Kadosh Baruch Hu, so we know that looking on Am Israel, when you look at the macro of Am Israel, of everybody, there is the nicest nation in the world. But if you look at edges, you might think that they are very, very different. Okay, some Jews are anti-Semitic, some Jews are against the root, so you might think that they are just mad. So that's why Bilam and Balak try now at the second stage to curse just the edges. Okay. ויקחהו שדה צופים על ראש הפסגה ויבן 7 מזבחות ויאמר אל בלק התייצב כל עלותיך ואנוכי עיקר אפו. Pay attention to the difference between the first and second speech. In the first one, he says, אולי יקרא אלוקים לקראתי ודבר מה יראני, maybe he'll show me something, וילך שפי. Here, he is much less skeptical. He still uses the word יקרא, the root of כופרשי, מקרה, by accident, but he doesn't say אולי. He doesn't say that Kadosh Baruch Hu would show me something. He understands. He has more confidence. He understands that Kadosh Baruch Hu would show him something. ויקרא Hashem el Bilam וישם דבר בפיו. And you see, Kadosh Baruch Hu talks to him the same language. And you talk to me in mikre. I will make the התגלות by mikre, by an accident, but no more than that. ויאמר שוב אל בלק וכה תדבר. Okay, וישם דבר בפיו, הקדוש ברוך הוא feeds him, but he doesn't tell him like the first time that I'll feed you. When you tell the baby I'll feed you, it's much more babyish than feeding him, that looking from behind the fence and taking care of the baby, of the boy, but don't tell him explicitly I'm feeding you. Okay, that's what הקדוש ברוך הוא doesn't do in the second speech. הקדוש ברוך הוא lets him think that he does it himself. ויאמר שוב אל בלק וכה תדבר. ויבוא אליו והנה ניצב על עלתו ושרי מואב איתו, ויאמר לו בלק מה דיבר השם. Even Balak now is sure that הקדוש ברוך הוא is spoken, because he didn't tell him maybe, okay? He is sure that he would supply him a speech with הקדוש ברוך הוא. וישא משלו ויאמר, קום בלק ושמע, האזינה עדי בנות ציפור. And then he talks about Am Israel. In the first speech, remember, he spoke about the minyan, okay? About the number that is uncountable. Now he says, לא איש אל ויחזב ובן אדם ויתנחם. ההוא אמר ולא יעשה, ודיבר ולא יקימן. הנה ברך לקחתי וברך ולא אשיבנה. לא הביט אבן ביעקב ולא ראה עמל בישראל, השם אלוקיו עמו ותרועת מלך בו. So first of all, it doesn't talk about the history, it talks about the roots, the sources of Am Yisrael. Now he speaks the history very shortly to the past. Just look, אל מוציאם ממצרים כתועפות ראם לו. הקדוש ברוך הוא has taken them out of מצרים just 40 years ago, and now what would they do with it in the future? כי לא נחש ביעקב ולא קסם בישראל. כעת יאמר ליעקב ולישראל מה פעל השם, אין עם כלביא יקום וכארי יתנשא, לא ישכב עד יאכל טרף ודם חללים ישתה. So first of all, he doesn't look at the past, he looks more in the future. Secondly, he doesn't look at the number of Am Yisrael, he looks at the fact that Am Yisrael is not made by magics. Nothing, לא נחש ביעקב ולא קסם בישראל. No magician, not a wizard, nobody of them could help dealing with Am Yisrael. אין עם כלביא יקום וכארי יתנשא. Am Yisrael is like a lion, לא ישכב עד יאכל טרף ודם חללים ישתה. So he will win whoever he confronts. Okay, so we have several differences. We see that Bilam comes to the second speech with more confidence. He's more sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will speak to him. He doesn't talk about the past, he talks more about the future, and he doesn't talk about the numbers, he talks about the fact that no magic could help with Am Yisrael. Now we'll go to the third נאום. ויאמר בלק אל בלעם, לכנה ייקחך אולי מקום אחר, אולי ישר בעיני האלוהים וקרבתו למשם. ויאמר בלעם אל בלק, בנה לי בזה 7 מזבחות, ואכן לי בזה 7 פרים ושירה אלים. Look that now he doesn't tell him, maybe הקדוש ברוך הוא will speak to me, תתייצב על עולתך, and אולי יראה הקדוש ברוך הוא אותי. He doesn't even say like the second speech, not אולי, but אנוכי עיקר רקו, ויקר אלוקים על בלעם. No, he just tells him, you have the prescription of how to make the background, okay? זה תפאורה, you have to do 7 פרים ושירה אלים, so make all the background and I'll do what I have to do. And immediately in the beginning of פרק כ"ד, וירא בלעם כי טוב בעיני השם לברך את ישראל, ולא הלך כפעם בפעם ליד לקראת נחשים, וישם אל המדבר פניו. So you see, וישא בלעם את עיניו, וירא את ישראל שוכן בנשבתיו, ותהי עליו רוח אלוהים. Okay, so here with no introduction, no being skeptical, not even being less skeptical, now he's just sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu will speak to him, and like a prophet with a nisayon, with a lot of experience, he just starts speaking, and he's sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu ותהי עליו רוח אלוקים. Okay, and when you do it, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't, לא נקרא עליו HaKadosh Baruch Hu, HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't look at him as a carry, as a tum'ah, as we say, as Rashi, the famous Rashi of Sefer Vayikra says, that the difference between Moshe Vayikra, like a call, whereas Bilam is Vayikr, tum'ah. No, when you talk directly, look כאילו, חס ושלום, את הקדוש ברוך Hu's eyes, face to face, I know that I owe it, being a Navi, and I know that I can do it, so HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you, yes, you can. Yes, you can do it. ותהי עליו רוח אלוקים. So the third time, he doesn't have a preparation, he is sure that he says, וישא משלו ויאמר. Let's see what he does here, ויאמר. נאום בלעם בנו באור, ונאום הגבר שתום העין. We can make a lot of differences between the נבואות. In the second one, he spoke to Balak. האזינה בלק ובנו ציפור, כן? And now he talks about himself, okay? Because he's more full of himself. He's very sure that he can give something, that he can say something. So he talks about himself. Who am I? נאום שומע אמרי אל. אשר מחזה שדי יחזה, נופל וגלוי עיניים, okay? So the Rambam says, נופל וגלוי עיניים, that's the difference between Moshe and Bilam, that's true, but Bilam talks about himself positively, okay? He says, I see מחזה הקדוש ברוך הוא, I am very experienced in being a prophet, okay? מה טובו אוהליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל. So now, he doesn't talk neither about the past, about the roots, nor about the future. He talks about the significance of the Shvatim, the tribes, because he saw, remember, he saw a few psukim ago, he saw Am Yisrael shochen nishvatam. So he talks about Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Ohalecha Yaakov, he talks about the tribes. כנחלים נטעו כגנות עלי נהר, כאהלים נטע השם כארזים עלי מים. If you bring a plane and you make a big picture of a lot of fields, so you see the river that cross it very nicely, and you see the tunnels with water to water is a field, and you see this field is green, this field is brown, and you see how it's divided very nicely. So the same things he sees from the macro, he sees from the mountain, he sees Am Yisrael, Shochen Ishvatav, and he sees, I see Reuven, I see Shimon, I see Levi. Everybody has his own significance, and it's mamash like Mayim. It's like mamash, like you look, you see in Emek Israel, you see how nicely it's divided to pieces of ground. The same thing he says here. I mamash see Am Yisrael, how it's divided into tribes. Okay? El motzi'o miMitzrayim keto'afot ראם לו, יאכל גויים צרה, ועצמותיהם יגרם וחיציו ימחץ. כרך שכב כארי וכלבי מי יקימנו, מבעורריך ברוך ועורריך ארור. So now he doesn't talk about the numbers of Am Yisrael, he doesn't talk about the significance of Am Yisrael, of not being, that magics don't help with them. Now he says that Am Yisrael has significance Lemaise, okay, in fact, that he kills his enemies, that he וירום מהגג מלכו ותינשא מלכותו, that he will be the only king. He doesn't extrapolate it, he'll do it in the fourth speech. And the מברכך ברוך ועורריך ארור. Okay? Okay. So we see here that but Bilam in his third speech is very sure and doesn't speak about the history nor about the future. He speaks about what Am Yisrael is now, very sure of himself, okay, meaning to say that he's like a lion, but not a lion that kills his enemies, but a lion that sits and sleeps confidently, knowing for sure that he is the lion king. Okay, the same thing happens with Am Yisrael. Now we don't have much time, so we'll go very shortly to the fourth nevuah. The fourth nevuah, Balak is very fed up. והנה ברכת ברך זה 3 פעמים, ואתה ברח לך אל מקומך, as we know, as I mentioned. But now, Bilam gives him, hadran, as we say in a concert, encore, that he says, I'll give you some al cheshbon habayit. I'll give you the fourth speech. I'll pay it. You don't have to pay. הנני הולך לעמי, לך יעצך אשר יעשה העם הזה לעמך באחרית הימים. Now he is very, very, very confident, and without even being told to curse, he makes it himself. He initiates him. He is the one that tells Balak, I can give you a speech, okay? And then he says, וישם שלו ויאמר, נאום בלעם בנו באור, ונאום הגבר שתום עין, again, he spoke about himself, נאום שומע אמרי אל, ויודע דעת עליון, מחזה שדי יחזה, נאום נופל ובלו עיניים, הראינו ולא אתה, אשורנו ולא קרוב. Now he speaks לגמרי about the metaphysical existence of עם ישראל in אחרית הימים, דרך כוכב מיעקב וקו שמת בישראל, ומחץ פאתי מואב וקרקר כל בני שת. So at the end of the day he tells Moab, he tells the king of Moab, not only that Am Yisrael would conquer the whole world, but in particular, umachatz patei Moab. So all you do now is just in vain, because he'll crash just Moab, okay? וקרקר כל בני שת, והיה אדום ירשה והיה ירש עשיר רבע, וישראל עושה חיל, וירד מיעקב והביא צעיר מעיר, and even עמלק ואחריתו עובד, and okay, בקיצור, he has differences between his first, second, third, and fourth speech. While he was very skeptical in the first and little skeptical in the second, he's very sure in the third, but he's being asked to curse. In the fourth, he does it from himself without being told to curse. While in the first one, he talked about Am Yisrael roots and about his minyan. In the second one, he talked about not being able to be cursed by magics. The third one, he talks about the Ma'ala of Am Yisrael. And the fourth one, he talks about that Am Yisrael wins all over its enemies, mamash, and will be the only one in the Metziut, in the world. We see here, as we spoke at the beginning of the Shiur, the pattern of 3 times and 4 times. 3 times he has basically the same thing. He's being told he's paid, and he tries several places in order to curse from one and another. But while failing in the 3, he skips. The 4th is not like the former 3 ones. Former is totally different. The former is something from himself. That's the most dangerous one. That's why he succeeds in this one. And later on, we see וגם Balak הלך את דרכו, but we have in פרק כ"ה the story of Bnot Moab, because according to Chazal, according to what the Torah says at the end of Sefer Bamidbar, that was a Eitzah of Bilam. So the 4th speech is from himself, makes a most expression, and is the most successful one. And he tells the real future. He tells, on the one hand, Melech Moab, umachatz patei Moab, that you have no case because they'll crash you. But on the other hand, he succeeds in failing Am Yisrael, in lachti otam, in making them sin. So we see a development, and we see that the 4 speeches are not all the same, a little bit here and there, but they have continuity, and they have one line of being more and more maturer and maturer, more and more confident, and more being a Novi. Shavua tov, להתראות.